My talk is on finding identity. Okay. We had some other talks, some about like technology, some about like practical habits. This one is really close and dear to me because it's something that I've always struggled with and something that I've come to a lot of conclusions about. It's something that I think a lot of you guys can take away something to look from. So I just want to start off by saying that everything in this room, everything that you guys have in your house, that you personally have, all has two types of values. Okay, one is the fake value, and one is the real value. Now let me tell you what I mean by fake value, okay? That's face value, right? I mean, have you guys ever, like, I don't know, for those who are inclined to read, you might get a Kindle, not me. But you know, you go to the library, or maybe just like a bookstore, and you're like looking at like the sci-fi books, if you're a nerd like me, and you're like, these covers are so sweet. Like, they're dragon, you know, like dragon riders slaying dragon riders in outer space. And you're like, I want that, right? And you read the book, and then it's like told like it was written by like a 15-year-old, right? It's like no plot, just like explosions, right? So the face value of the book is, this book has awesome value. It's gonna be so cool, I want this book. However, the real value, aside from its face value, is that it's a crap. It has nothing past its face value. What are some other things? Food. Some food looks so good. Like, you'll be watching a commercial for like Burger King, and you're like, that is so cheap, and it looks so good. There's like drips of water on the tomatoes, and you're like, they're so fresh, right? Made fresh. And then you go there, and you like see somebody like unpackaging plastic material and slapping it between your buns, you know, and you're like, that's not what I saw in the commercial. So it has awesome face value, but really sucky, lame, real value, right? Some other things that have these values, right? Movies. How many times have you gone, you know, you're like in the theater, you're watching a preview for a comedy, and you're like, this movie looks so funny. I laughed so hard at the preview. And then you're like, go into the movie, right? And all the funniest parts were in the preview, right? And you're like, this movie blows, but it had awesome face value, right? So everything has a face value and a real value. I want to touch on and present some analogies. So I want to tell you a little story about elephants, okay? What they do with elephants in India. Now, elephants are incredibly strong animals. Look at how big that is compared to a human. Okay? Now, if it had like a brain with computing power that was like comparable to its size, these things would be like the smartest animals on the earth, right? They're not, though. And basically, what do you do, like, how do you use an animal that has like the brute force of a dinosaur? You know, how do you utilize that as a human, right? You go up to it, you get stomped on. Basically, what they started doing is, they're like, how can we control these large animals? Because we want to use them for carrying stuff, we want to use them, you know, practically, right? So they started doing with baby elephants is that they would tie their back leg with, you know, really strong rope to a tree whenever they were babies. And they do it for about a 3-month period. Now, what do you guys think the baby elephant learns during that 3-month period of isolation and struggle? Basically, what they found is that, okay, after doing that for 3 months, what they're going to do is they're going to, you know, take a smaller tree, you know, maybe a little bit thinner rope, keep it attached to it. Okay, another 2 months goes by. Then all they do is they take a thin rope, tie it around the elephant's ankle, attach it to a post in the ground. Do you think the elephant moves? It doesn't move at all. Because it knows that whenever something's wrapped around its ankle, it's completely weak. Completely, you know, incapable of doing anything. The reality of the fact is if that elephant like trips or takes a step, it's free. The thing is they don't even try. After 3 months as a baby, it becomes so ingrained inside their mind that they don't even try. So what happens to that full-grown elephant? It's completely trapped inside of its mind. It has awesome real value. It has the value of being one of the strongest animals, right? But its face value, its fake value that it believes inside is that it's weaker than any other animal, right? Now let me tell you another example about a flea. Okay, fleas do something. You know, they did something similar with fleas. Fleas are like absolutely incredible animals, and I'll get into that in a second. Fleas can jump about half a foot. Pretty lame, right? Let me go a little bit further, okay? So they can jump about half a foot in a natural environment. Now, they took a few fleas, put them in a small jar. Okay, fleas are always jumping. And they put them in a jar for, a few days, like a week. And they take these fleas out, and how high do you think the fleas jump? They jump as high as the jar lid is. They can't jump half a foot. They literally, when they're releasing the wild, they can only continue jumping at that height that they're restricted. Now, the fake value of the elephant that it believes is that it's weak, can't do anything. Similarly, the flea says, oh, I used to be a high jumper, now I can't. But those are great years, right? And at the same time, the real value of those animals is that they actually have a lot more potential. Okay, an elephant's incredibly strong, and a flea can jump 100 times its own height. Okay, so a flea can jump 100 times its height. What's that comparable to a human? That's a human jumping, let's say, like 5 foot, kind of a short human, right? You can jump 500 feet. Imagine a human jumping 500 feet and not completely destroying their body, right? Their legs, right? You're going to be useless, but ultimately, the fake value is almost always different than the real value. Now, I want to ask you guys: do you think that people have a value that they assign themselves? Do you think that people have a fake value and a real value? I would argue that they do. I think so, and I think just like the flea and the elephant, I think we tend to listen to more what we think is our value, our face value, rather than what our real value is. Okay? And I want to kind of explain why that is. I think this is exactly what our society wants. Now, when you're at a mall, what do advertisements tell you? You go to a mall, you see advertisements. They tell you that you're awesome and that you are complete and that you're an incredibly capable human being. I think women struggle with this a lot more than men, but you see advertisements everywhere of model contoured women that are just beautifully rendered on Photoshop, right? And it basically, the purpose of advertisements is completely to make you feel inadequate, to create a need in you. On TV, it's that you're hungry, and then you eat a hamburger. You're inadequate. You're not complete. Or on a billboard that has that elegant figure, you're not contoured enough, or you're not right, or you're not normal. Okay. And realize that this isn't just at the mall. It's what your TV tells you. It's what your computer tells you on advertisements online. It's what the whole world tells you the whole time you're growing up. Is that you're inadequate, that your value is insignificant, that you're not the best, right? And basically, it tells you that you need stuff. You need stuff to be right. And that's not all. A recent study shows that, kind of an interesting characteristic about humanity. Okay, people. Now these are kind of huge numbers, right? We would love to make this much money, but it shows the sake of my point. People would rather earn $500,000 a year, while the circle of their friends earn $250,000. Okay, they would rather earn $500,000 when all their friends earn $250,000. They'd rather have that situation than them make $1 million every year and their closest circle of friends make $2 million. Think about that. The majority of people would rather make less money as long as all their friends are making even less than that. Right? It's kind of a silly thought, but it actually has a lot of application in our society. People are naturally selfish. I'm not just trying to be down on, people are all bad, but it's true. People are naturally selfish. And I think the world is responsible, the world that we live in is responsible for that. Because people are always striving to be better than everyone else. There's a difference between people trying to be the best them and just trying to be better than everyone else. People always try and strive for the best face value. What does that look like? That looks like having wealth, having possessions, having status, having success, being a football player, being somebody that people look up to, having that whole lot of high value, right? And it's no wonder that that society is selfish, because it's always telling you that you're not good enough. But what I think, just like the elephant and the flea, that our identity is not in our face value. Okay. And it's in our real value. Something that nobody will tell you. You know, your parents might tell you, your grandma might tell you, you're awesome. Or I love you because you guys are so great, you know. But you know, that feels awesome when you're a kid. You step out into the real world and then they're like, oh, you know, you suck at math. Or you know what, you suck at writing essays. Or who knows, right? For most of us it's something academic, but there's obviously a lot of other things, right, in the world. Let me move on. Alright, now I'm gonna proceed to showing you guys some examples of people that have believed in a greater identity of themselves. All right, I want to show you kind of what the life of Chris created. Okay, just 1 second. All right, I want to tell you about a boy named George. Okay, George was born in 1732. He lost his father at age 11. His peers thought he wasn't very bright. But regardless of that, he decided to apply himself to the sciences and the mathematics, okay? Right? People told him that his face value was that you're not very good at math, you're not very smart. But he ignored that, and he decided to go for those things that he wanted to learn. And his first job was official surveyor of Culpeper, Virginia. Now, what that might look like today, being a surveyor, is using your iPad to look at the angles, and getting some degree measurements. Back then, that was hauling logs with really rigid pieces of wood. It's systems that were incredibly intensive and dangerous, right? Because there was no oh no problem, we'll just have our tractor move this piece to here. No, and there was no really simple satellite image for them to create straight roads. It was all based on knowing math and about knowing angles and about surveying the land for there to be living conditions. Okay. All right, and I'm going to tell you kind of what his feature length is. But I'm going to move on to the next character. Okay. The next character's name is David. Okay. He was born in the 1800s in Knoxville, Tennessee. Okay. His father was away in the state militia. Okay. However, yeah, so basically his whole life, his father was in the military, all right, in the state militia. However, at age 10, he began as a naval cadet at sea on the warship Essex. Age 10, okay? He decides to go and camp out on a ship. Turns out the ship's a warship, right? At age 11, he saw his first battle, okay? This isn't like watching a battle on a television. This is like being on a warship where people are dying around you, where either you will all survive or you will all die. Or who knows what you're going to experience when you're taken captive. Right? Age 11. At age 12, check this out. He was given command of a captured ship in Peru. His command was to bring the captured crew back to the U.S. Okay? So the U.S. captured a ship, a British ship that had all the crew, and they overcame them. This is what the guy's job was. He's 12 years old. He was put in charge of taking the crew, the captured crew, all the way back to the U.S. How hardcore is that? Okay? Now, one of the things that they did is the British captain that lost, that was kept under say with it, understand the ship. They basically said, you're allowed to have your pistols. It's as a sign of respect. They took all the other weapons away from all the other soldiers. They said, as respect for you being the captain, we're going to let you have your pistols. Now, what he said was the prisoner who was the British captain took insult at being ordered by a 12-year-old. I think that was you, right? You've been a Navy sea captain for 30 years and you're being told what to do by a 12-year-old. And he told David, right, the 12-year-old, that he was going to go get his pistols. And he was sick of this. Sick of being reprimanded by a 12-year-old. David replied really quickly. He said, he sent word down really promptly. He said, if that captain stepped foot on deck with his pistols, that he would be shot and thrown overboard. The British captain is David. All right? I'm going to tell you about another character, and I'll tell you what David became after this, okay? I'm going to tell you about Clara. Okay, Clara was born in Oxford, Massachusetts, 1821. Can I hear a holler from Massachusetts? Yeah, right. At age of 21. Now, she was, I want to tell you a little bit about her, okay? She was really timid. She was actually terrified of strangers, terrified of people, and had an incredible terror of blood. You know, couldn't stand it. Like, literally, it made her get the chills, and she could, almost like, she would almost faint, basically. Now, she was 11 years old when a great tragedy beset her family. Her older brother, she was the youngest child, by the way. Her older brother falls off the roof of their barn. All right? And he became in critical status. Now, she was incredibly distraught by this. He was taken into the local medical area, and she became the greatest help to him. Turns out the nurse, she instantly came to a position where she was definitely like contacting blood, but she overcame her fear of blood for her brother's life, and she ended up being she was far superior to all the nurses when it came to helping him. So they actually just let her take control of it. How old is she? She's 11. Okay. Now she actually got a reputation for being incredible working with patients. She was something that nobody else had. She had something, in her attitude, something loving about her that just made her far superior. And at age 14, she ended up helping a man who had contracted smallpox. Okay? Smallpox is pretty contagious, right? Do you guys know what smallpox looks like? You basically get like dots all over your face. It's incredibly painful, and it's highly contagious. Now, she helped him regardless of this fact. And when smallpox spread to her whole town, she became a head nurse. Right? And she gained all these responsibilities at such a young age. All right. Now, I want to ask you guys a few questions. Well, first, I'm going to talk about George. Okay. Go back to George. My bad. I'm not going to ask questions yet. You remember George? George was the surveyor of Virginia. So he actually got appointed to the state militia in a really high rank after the surveying job because he did so well. He was responsible for leading a winter march over hundreds of miles. Right? At age 22, he was promoted to lieutenant. Was he successful? And later he became the commander-in-chief of the Continental Army. This man was George Washington. He became our first president. Okay. Pretty incredible story. George, had everything going against him when he was little. People said he was unintelligent. Gave him that value that he was worth, but he overcame. I want to tell you about David, okay? David, the sea captain, right? At 11 years old. His full name is David Farragut, and he became the U.S. Navy's first admiral. And he was a huge hero in the Civil War. Right? Pretty incredible. Let me show you a picture of him real quick. This is him at age 12. But he became incredibly recognized because he would win all of the battles. So they're like, you get one with the British, send one David. Okay. And I'm talking about the last person, Clara. Now, she's best known as being the founder of the American Red Cross. And for her sick brother, and overcoming her fears, she ended up helping thousands of wounded men in the Civil War, and over millions in the American Red Cross. Right? Pretty incredible people, or are they just average people? They have superpowers, right? This is what I categorize as just the fact that humans have amazing capability for greatness. And I want to say that identity is key in that. So this is a picture of Clara. Right? Yeah, not age, like age 12. I'm going to tell you some other stories, okay? Joan of Arc led 3,000 French knights to victory in the Battle of New Orleans at age 17. No big deal. James Madison appointed to the Virginia State Legislature at age 25, wrote the Constitution at age 30. No big deal. Okay? Now, these people lived under a completely different mindset. They had a completely different identity from the world and what the world told them, okay? Now, I want to kind of propose, what if, if we all lived under the same identity and ignored the face value of what the world told us, there would be no reason to have to be better than anybody. Something about how people naturally are selfish to make themselves better and have a better face value. All of a sudden, the face value erodes, there's no need for that. Everybody starts believing the capability of themselves as human beings. And, there's no need to put other people down. A lot of the times that's just because instead of making yourself seem, instead of like accomplishing something, what's a lot easier than, actually doing something great? What you can do is actually make everybody around you feel worse. And that'll actually make you have a better face value. That leads to ultimately having no friends. But you can make somebody else look stupid and it'll make you look good. And that's unfortunate, but that's the power of words. I want to talk about also the flip side of that. What do you think it does for a third grader when their teacher comes up to them and says, wow, you're incredible. That essay you wrote is one of the best essays I've ever written. You're going to be an incredible writer when you grow up, and I want to read your stories. What does that do for that kid? Does it say, okay. Or does it actually allow them to think that, they might think that their value is, before the conversation, they might think their value is right here, okay? When the real value might be up here, really. But then what happens to the value that they think they are? It's, maybe I can be a writer. Maybe I am capable of greatness. And it does a lot for, it seems trivial, but it does a lot for people. One of the things I learned, I was doing management training for this job. And one of the things they said was, the greatest thing you can do for somebody is reveal to them their potential instead of just highlighting their weaknesses. Sometimes what managers do is they just go up to their workers and say, these are all the things you've done wrong, fix it. What does that do for the person? They're like, oh great, I'm going to screw up, And then their work is average. But then, the boss says, they points out, hey, you're doing some really awesome things. I love that you're on our team because you're doing awesome things. Here's some areas to work on. But thank you for being such an awesome employee. What does that do for them? Maybe I'm going to work towards being that employee of the month. Or maybe I do. Maybe I am really good at my job, right? And it sounds kind of cheesy, but it's true. It gets people to start thinking that they actually have a value higher than the one that the world has told them that they have. Okay? It's the power of words. And this is what I found on my search to find my identity. Is that ultimately we have a world that tells me that I'm useless, right? And everywhere I go. But ultimately that I do have a greater value. And those stories of the people that I told you believed in themselves. Now, I'm not just trying to create a speech where it's let's all walk out of here and feel awesome about ourselves. But let's appreciate the fact that the value that we assign ourselves is not realistic. We all have the ability, we all have the ability to achieve greatness. Now, and I gave this talk before. And, I gave it to people, and I talked to some people afterwards, and I kind of let them know, go out and do awesome things, And I had some different people come up and talk to me, I had this older lady at my church came up and said, great speech, I wish I was young and could do things like that. Mr. Dolphin, right? I'm just kidding. Yeah, compared to an old lady. But ultimately what she did was, she said that those things that Connor's talking about are only for young kids. My real value is not that great. Ultimately, she made another excuse. She didn't realize her real value. I had a younger kid come up to me and say, I can't wait until I go in college, and I hope I can do great things too. No, that's not what it's about. It's about, you're young, awesome, now's the time to start. You're a lot greater than you think you are. And if you allow that, you're going to achieve really awesome things. Now, I want to end on one last note, okay? I want to share an example of a girl named, I don't really know how to say her name, it's On Limitiz. I believe, okay? And I'm just gonna, I'm gonna tell you a little bit about her condition, okay? Kind of some of the things that she has to face, all right? Now, she has a disease called progeria, all right? Progeria is like the worst disease I can ever think of. They live to about the average age of 13 years, okay? So they never really reach maturity. And they get all the aging effects of being 80 years old. Their cartilage deteriorates in their joints, their skin thins out, their veins show on their head, their eyes begin to bulge, their joints become weak. They get tired super easily, so they can't run out of blood. They can't do any of the activities of regular children. I mean, their mind is fine, their mind is just their body is aging very fast. They lose all their hair, their nails become brittle, just all these really, really horrible things. And some of the pictures are like a little bit disturbing, at first, because I was like, holy cow, that's real. But I want to kind of begin to show you kind of what this disease actually ends up looking like. This is her, okay? She's almost 13. She looks about 75 or older, right? And it's just this wild, crazy disease of manipulation of data, in the cell, and they end up aging like way faster. I'll show you some more pictures. They generally have enlarged heads. Okay, they don't grow to normal size. They kind of stay that height, about a foot to not a foot. Sorry, about 3 feet to 4 feet. All right. This is her mother, and they're actually staying in the U.S. right now because she's undergoing treatment because it's a really rare disease, and I think that there's a gene that speeds up the rate of growing old, and so she's actually going on. They're doing a lot of research. This is the last photo I was going to show, and she has to go. She goes through a whole lot, but she's an incredible girl. All of her teachers are incredibly impressed by her, just her mind, her intellect, and she's had to overcome a lot because she's definitely strange that some kids make fun of her. But I just want to show you the difference between a kid who has somebody who has a whole lot of identity, maybe something who doesn't, you're one of us, right? I want to share one last quote, and I'll end on this. And this last slide is basically the epitome of what it means to be secure in who you are, to realize your true value as a human being. Okay? She said this: I would like to be a psychologist so that I can work on the problems of other people, and so they can accept the way that they are, because they can see that I accept the way I am. Pretty powerful stuff. Now, I would be pretty inclined to just complain all day about my condition, but she actually wants to help other people find a sense of identity. I think she has an incredibly strong sense of identity. Pretty incredible, right? And that's my song.